March 21st, 10 p.m. The armored vehicle jolted violently as it tore through the rugged terrain, throwing us against its steel walls. The growl of the engine was deafening, a metallic beast roaring against the night. Outside, the infected swarmed in a sea of glowing eyes and snarling mouths, their relentless pursuit a horrifying reminder that safety was still out of reach. The vibrations of the vehicle's engine rattled my teeth, and the frantic voices of my companions layered over the chaos. "Hold on!" the driver shouted, his voice muffled by his helmet and the chaos outside. The vehicle veered sharply to avoid a fallen tree, the tires skidding on the loose dirt before regaining traction. Through the small, reinforced windows, I could see the infected, fast, too fast, closing in despite our speed. Their claws raked at the air, their glowing scars illuminating the forest in eerie flashes. The sight was haunting, an unnatural glow pulsating like a macabre heartbeat in the darkness. "They're gaining on us," Maria yelled, gripping her rifle as she braced herself against the wall. Her voice was sharp, filled with desperation as her knuckles whitened around the weapon. "Tucker, give me a status on the turret," Price barked, her voice sharp and commanding, cutting through the rising panic like a blade. Tucker, seated near the rear hatch, slapped the side of the mounted turret. "Ammo's low, but it'll hold for now." He swung the turret around, unleashing a hail of bullets that tore through the leading infected. Bodies crumpled and snarls turned to shrieks, but more replaced them, undeterred by the carnage. The turret's rhythm was a grim cadence, a tempo that matched the thudding in my chest. 10:05 p.m. "This isn't working," Calloway muttered, his face pale but resolute. He stared out of the small window with a haunted look. "They're coordinating. Whoever's controlling them knows exactly what they're doing." "Then we need to change the rules," Price said, her eyes blazing. She leaned toward the driver. "Is there another way out of this forest?" The driver hesitated, glancing at the crude map on his dashboard. His hands shook slightly as he pointed to a faint line on the map. "There's an old service road to the west, but it's risky. Narrow, unstable. We could get stuck." "Do it," Price ordered. "Better stuck than dead." The vehicle lurched as the driver spun the wheel, the tires skidding as we veered onto a barely visible path. The infected followed, their howls echoing through the trees like a sinister symphony. The service road was overgrown, the forest closing in around us like a living cage. Branches clawed at the vehicle, their brittle snaps blending with the rhythmic thrum of the turret. Inside the vehicle, silence settled between our frantic movements, broken only by the scrape of metal and the distant snarls. 10:15 p.m. The vehicle suddenly shuddered to a halt, the engine growling in protest. "We're stuck," the driver shouted, slamming his fists against the steering wheel. "The axles caught on something." "Everyone out," Price commanded. "We're not waiting to die in here." We spilled out of the vehicle into the oppressive darkness of the forest. The air was damp and cold, each breath visible in the faint moonlight filtering through the canopy. The snarls of the infected were closer now, a constant reminder that time was running out. I gripped my Halligan tool tightly, its familiar weight grounding me in the chaos. "Tucker, Maria, on me," Price shouted. "Hold them off while Calloway and Green figure out how to free the axle." Maria nodded, her face set with grim determination as she took up a position near the vehicle. Tucker limped into place beside her, his shotgun loaded and ready. "I've got your back," he said, a flicker of a grin breaking through the tension. Despite his injury, Tucker's stance was solid, his resolve unshaken. 10:20 p.m. The infected emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes like embers in the dark. Maria fired first, her shots precise and unyielding. Tucker's shotgun roared, each blast tearing through the relentless horde. I stood beside them, my Halligan tool gripped tightly in my hands. When the first infected broke through the gunfire, I swung with all my strength, the impact reverberating through my arms as it crumpled to the ground. Behind us, Green and Calloway worked frantically, their hands trembling as they fought to dislodge the axle. "It's jammed against a root," Green cried, her voice high with panic. "Keep at it," Price yelled, her rifle barking as she picked off infected with deadly precision. We're not leaving this vehicle behind. The ground beneath us seemed to vibrate with the force of the horde, the air thick with their snarls and the metallic tang of blood. One of the infected lunged at Zoe, its claws slashing through the air. She screamed, falling backward, but I stepped in, driving the Halligan tool into its chest. It let out a guttural cry before collapsing. "Stay close," I said, pulling Zoe to her feet. 10:30 p.m. A deafening roar cut through the chaos, silencing the forest for a brief, heart-stopping moment. From the shadows emerged a massive figure, its hulking form covered in jagged scars that glowed like molten veins. It was different from the others, larger, faster, and far more dangerous. "What the hell is that?" Tucker muttered, his voice tinged with awe and terror. Calloway's face paled. "A hybrid alpha," he said. "We've never seen one in the field before. This changes everything." The creature let out another roar, its glowing eyes locking onto us with terrifying intelligence. It charged, its movements impossibly fast for its size. Maria fired at it, but the bullets ricocheted harmlessly off its armored hide. The sound of the impacts was chilling, a stark reminder of our helplessness. "Fall back," Price ordered. "Regroup at the vehicle." We retreated, the Alpha tearing through the infected in its path, as though they were nothing more than obstacles. It was hunting us, and nothing would stand in its way. Each step it took seemed to shake the ground beneath us, its glowing scars pulsating like a warning beacon. "We're out of time," Green cried, tears streaming down her face as she worked on the axle. "It's not moving." "Then we make our stand here," Price said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "No one runs. No one gives up. We fight." The Alpha roared again, and we braced ourselves for the battle of our lives. 10:35 p.m. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the Alpha stood motionless, its glowing eyes fixated on us. The chaotic snarls of the infected faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the labored breaths of our group and the distant hum of the vehicle's engine still futilely spinning against its trapped axle. Time slowed, each second stretching as we waited for the inevitable. "It's testing us," Calloway whispered, his voice barely audible. "It knows we're cornered." "If it's testing us, it's about to fail," Price said, raising her rifle. Her grip was steady, but her eyes betrayed the tension coiling inside her. "Tucker, Maria, aim for the joints. We've got to slow it down." The Alpha let out a guttural growl, low and rumbling, like an earthquake building beneath our feet. Then it moved, faster than anything that size should be able to, closing the distance in mere heartbeats. "Fire!" Price shouted. The first volley of bullets tore through the air, hitting the Alpha squarely in its legs and shoulders. Sparks flew as the rounds ricocheted off its armored hide, but one shot from Maria's rifle struck a vulnerable spot at the back of its knee. The creature staggered, its roar splitting the night like a thunderclap. "Keep at it," Price ordered. "Bring it down." 10:40 p.m. The Alpha retaliated with a sweeping claw, its massive arm cutting through the air like a wrecking ball. Tucker barely dove out of the way, rolling to his side and firing his shotgun at point-blank range. The blast hit the Alpha's exposed joint, forcing it to recoil, but the cost was high. The creature's other arm lashed out, striking Tucker and sending him sprawling against a tree. "Tucker!" I shouted, rushing to his side as Maria and Price continued their assault. Blood trickled from his temple, but he groaned and forced himself upright, his grip tightening around his shotgun. "I'm fine," he muttered, his voice strained. "Just a scratch." The Alpha lunged again, this time targeting the vehicle. Its claws raked across the metal, tearing into the frame and shattering a side panel. Inside, Green let out a scream, clutching the laptop she'd been working on as the entire vehicle rocked under the impact. The sheer force of the blow sent vibrations through the ground, shaking our precarious positions. "Get it away from the vehicle," Price commanded. "We can't lose that data." I grabbed my Halligan tool and charged, swinging it at the Alpha's exposed back. The impact was like hitting solid steel, but it was enough to draw the creature's attention. It turned its glowing eyes on me, and for a moment, I felt the full weight of its predatory focus. A cold dread washed over me as its massive form loomed closer, the glowing scars along its body pulsating with a sinister rhythm. "Over here, you bastard!" I shouted, backing away slowly. Maria joined in, firing round after round at its flanks. The creature roared and shifted its attention, giving Calloway and Green precious seconds to work on freeing the vehicle. 10:45 p.m. The infected began to rejoin the fight, surging from the shadows in disorganized waves. Their glowing eyes bobbed in the darkness, and their guttural snarls filled the air. Maria switched targets, firing into the horde to keep them at bay. Each shot landed with precision, but the relentless tide of infected seemed endless. "They're using the Alpha as a distraction," Calloway yelled from beneath the vehicle. His hands were smeared with grease and dirt as he worked frantically to cut through the root, trapping the axle. "It's buying time for them to overwhelm us." "Not if we hold the line," Price said, her voice unyielding. She positioned herself near the vehicle, her rifle firing in precise bursts. "Green, status on the drive?" "Almost done," Green replied, her voice shaking. "Just keep them off me." The Alpha roared again, its movements more erratic as it tried to shake off the wounds inflicted by our attacks. I swung my Halligan tool again, this time targeting the already damaged joint in its knee. The strike connected, and the creature collapsed to one leg, its roar turning into a guttural snarl of rage. "It's working," Maria shouted. "Keep hitting the weak spots." 10:50 p.m. A deafening crack split the air as the root beneath the vehicle finally gave way. "It's free," Calloway yelled, scrambling out from beneath the frame. "Green, get in the driver's seat." "Start it up." Green didn't hesitate. She climbed into the vehicle, her hands trembling as she turned the key. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle jolted forward slightly, signaling its readiness to move. "Everyone, fall back to the vehicle," Price ordered. "Now." We moved as one, retreating under the cover of Maria and Price's suppressive fire. The Alpha, sensing our escape, lunged one final time. Its massive claws swiped at the vehicle, but Tucker fired a shot that struck its exposed joint, halting its momentum just enough for us to climb aboard. "Go, go, go," Price shouted as Green slammed her foot on the accelerator. The vehicle surged forward, tearing through the horde with its reinforced frame. The Alpha roared in frustration, its glowing scars fading into the distance as we sped away. 11 p.m. The forest thinned, the trees giving way to open fields bathed in pale moonlight. The adrenaline coursing through my veins began to subside, replaced by the heavy weight of exhaustion. Inside the vehicle, no one spoke. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the distant echoes of the battle we had narrowly escaped. Price broke the silence, her voice steady despite the chaos we'd just endured. "We're not out of this yet. That Alpha wasn't just some random mutation. It was deliberate, controlled, and whoever's behind it knows we're coming." Calloway nodded, his expression grim. "Then we'd better be ready, because this was just the beginning." The vehicle rumbled on, carrying us toward an uncertain future, the weight of our survival pressing heavily on all of us. Behind us, deep in the forest, the faint roar of the Alpha echoed once more, a chilling promise that it wasn't finished with us yet. 11:30 p.m. The field stretched before us like an open invitation, their moonlit expanse both a blessing and a curse. The dense forest that had been our prison now lay behind us, its shadowy embrace replaced by the unnerving vastness of open land. The vehicle roared steadily across the uneven terrain, its headlights cutting swaths of light through the darkness. Inside, the tension was palpable. Tucker leaned against the reinforced walls, his breath labored as he pressed a makeshift bandage against his side. Green sat next to him, the portable drive clutched in her trembling hands. Maria reloaded her rifle with methodical precision, her jaw set in grim determination. Price sat near the front, her gaze locked on the horizon as though willing the extraction point to materialize ahead of us. "Calloway," Price said, breaking the silence, "what are we up against?" "That thing back there wasn't just a random mutation." Calloway hesitated, his expression dark. "The Alpha wasn't an accident," he said finally. It's part of their experiments. A hybrid designed to lead the infected. Smarter, stronger, faster. It's not just a predator. It's a weapon. Weaponized hybrids? Maria snapped, her eyes narrowing. Who the hell are these people? People who think evolution needs a push, Calloway replied. His voice was steady, but his hands betrayed a slight tremor as he adjusted his equipment. They call themselves Orpheus, but their reach goes far beyond what you've seen. The Alpha was just a glimpse of what they're capable of. 11:45 p.m. The vehicle's tires jolted against a sudden rut, throwing us momentarily off balance. Green let out a yelp, clutching the portable drive closer to her chest. Price shot a glare at the driver. "Keep it steady," she ordered. The driver nodded curtly, his focus unwavering. "We're close," he said. "Should hit the extraction point in 10 minutes. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. The gnawing sense of unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach refused to dissipate. I glanced at the window, scanning the fields for movement. The open land offered no cover, no place to hide. If the infected returned, or worse, the Alpha— "Something's not right," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Maria looked up, her hand hovering over her rifle. "What do you mean?" Before I could respond, a piercing screech cut through the air. The sound was inhuman, a high-pitched wail that set every nerve on edge. The vehicle skidded to a halt as the driver slammed on the brakes. "What the hell was that?" Tucker muttered, his face pale. "Out of the vehicle," Price ordered, her voice sharp. "Now." We scrambled out, weapons drawn as we formed a defensive perimeter around the vehicle. The fields that had seemed so serene moments ago now felt oppressive, the darkness pressing in on all sides. The screech came again, closer this time, followed by the sound of rustling grass. "Eyes up," Price said. "Stay sharp." The first figure emerged from the shadows, its silhouette hunched and distorted. It wasn't an infected. Its movements were too calculated, too deliberate. More followed, their forms barely visible in the faint moonlight. They spread out, encircling us with eerie precision. "What are they?" Green whispered, her voice trembling. "Scouts," Calloway said grimly. "They're the Alpha's pack." 11:55 p.m. The air was thick with tension as the pack closed in. Their glowing eyes flickered like embers in the dark, their guttural growls resonating deep in my chest. These weren't mindless infected. They were something else entirely, something far worse. Their movements were coordinated, their intent clear. They were toying with us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "We can't fight them all," Tucker said, his grip tightening on his shotgun. "Not out here." "We don't need to fight them all," Price replied, her voice calm but firm. "We just need to hold them off until extraction." Maria glanced at Calloway. "Tell me you've got something useful in that bag of yours." Calloway pulled out a small device, its surface covered in blinking lights. "EMP grenade," he said. "Short range, but it'll disrupt their coordination. Might give us an opening." "Do it," Price said. "We'll cover you." Calloway nodded and moved toward the pack, his movements slow and deliberate. The rest of us opened fire, the sharp cracks of our weapons cutting through the night. The scouts darted and weaved, their agility making them difficult targets. One lunged at me, its claws swiping inches from my face. I swung my Halligan tool, the impact sending it sprawling. "Calloway, hurry!" Maria shouted, reloading her rifle. The pack began to close in, their snarls growing louder as they pressed their advantage. Calloway reached the center of their formation and threw the EMP grenade. The device detonated with a blinding flash of light and a high-pitched whine. The scouts recoiled, their movements jerky and disoriented. "Move!" Price yelled. "Back to the vehicle." We didn't need to be told twice. We sprinted toward the vehicle, firing behind us to keep the scouts at bay. Green scrambled into the driver's seat and gunned the engine. The vehicle roared to life, and we piled in just as the pack began to recover. The vehicle surged forward, the tires kicking up dirt as we sped toward the extraction point. The scouts gave chase, their glowing eyes a haunting reminder that our escape was far from certain. 12:05 a.m. The extraction point came into view, a small clearing marked by the faint glow of flares. A helicopter hovered overhead, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. Soldiers moved in coordinated formations, their weapons trained on the tree line. "We're here," Green cried, her voice breaking with relief. The vehicle skidded to a halt, and we spilled out, rushing toward the waiting soldiers. The pack hesitated at the edge of the clearing, their glowing eyes watching us with a predatory intensity. "Get on the chopper," one of the soldiers shouted. "We'll cover you." We didn't argue. One by one, we climbed aboard, the rotor's deafening roar drowning out the sounds of the scouts. As the helicopter lifted off, I looked down at the pack. They didn't retreat. They stood their ground, their eyes locked on us as we ascended into the night sky. Beside me, Price exhaled sharply, her expression unreadable. "This isn't over," she said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the helicopter. "Not by a long shot."